where I lived from 1941 to about 1952. Everything looks a whole lot different in this film than it did when we were here. Used to be nothing but cotton fields and so forth and so on, but anyway, things changed with the times.
And where's the landmarks?
This is past the Williams Chandler Road and the Mills Grove Road in a westerly direction. Approximately 132 acres is all the time.
Okay, Dad.
We're here at the Minish Cemetery. If you notice this sign, the Minish Cemetery Road, and out here is the Minish Cemetery. It was established well after 1900, and just in a minute we'll go out there and go over some of the grave sites and so forth. Give you a little inside information on some of the people that we might have known. About 2 years. Dr. Albert Minish gave us that property to carry us out to the road so we could clean up that tree line and so forth and make it more visible from the road. But we're right proud of the cemetery with the fact that we raised enough money to be able to keep it up on a professional grant fund. And that campaign lasted about 5 or 6 years, but it's still underfunded to really do a good job on it.
Okay, Daddy.
I'm standing in front of my great-granddad's grave, R.D. Minish, born November 29, 1845. Died June 9, 1947. And then his wife were both buried here. And he was the one that created this cemetery in the beginning. So it's been here since 1911, if not earlier. He was a rather unique person in the fact that he accumulated over 700 acres of land and was worth a great deal of money when he died. And did not have enough education to write his name. Checks or any other transactions he made was done with an X, and that was his identification for being able to do business. But the saying goes that he never bought anything unless he traded you something. And one time there was a fellow that managed to steal a check from him and was trying to cash it at Northeastern Bank in Commerce, Georgia. Not real sure where we got cut off at. We had to change the battery. But anyway, Starvey was a very prosperous man, and he was able to accumulate about 700 acres of land and a great deal of money, and was never able to write his name. He didn't have enough formal education for that. He was a trader and so forth, and it's my understanding that at one time somebody stole a check from him, claimed they'd been doing some business with him, and they wanted to know what Mr. Barrett traded him. Well, they done any business. He said he didn't trade him anything. Well, they would not cash the check based on that statement, because it was well known that was knew Mr. Barrett that he didn't buy anything unless he traded you something along before he would buy it. And that's what tripped the fellow up. He had in fact forged the check. Now, as I said before, he was very unique. He was able to provide all of his children, and I forget now whether there was 7 or 8 of them, with a farm each, which he had given to him before he died. And directly across the road is one he gave, and that was to my granddaddy, Isaac, one of the boys. And he had several boys, and we'll see some of them as we go down through here. Grave marker we're standing in front of here is Lamb Minish, which was my grandfather's brother, and anyway, he was well known around this part of the country. He lived down the road here about a half a mile. But him and his wife, Miss Estelle, is buried here. As you notice, Miss Estelle died in 1957. Miss Estelle was born in 1886, and died in 1957. But they had several children during the time they were married. There's other members of my great-granddaddy's family. There's the Gobers, the Segraves. Now, there was the two girls that married, of course, the Segraves and a Gober, and they're buried here too. Well, the idea was that he'd create a cemetery with the direct line of descendants. Our offspring from him, and it's been used pretty extensively for that.
Okay.
The Gober we're talking about here is Miss Tiny, as they called her. Her name was Tiny. She was 1914 to 1992, and she married Reuben Gober, and he was born in 1906. Died in 1961. So as you can see, the Minishers have got a pretty good lifespan, even for those days and times when medical care wasn't as great as it is now.
Okay.
This is Miss Connie Segraves, and anyway, they called her Susie. And she was Connie Susie Minish, married to Segraves, Sidney B. And he was born in 1910. And anyway, she was born in 1912 and lived in 1999. That's another case of pretty good longevity there, as it goes for the times. I don't know whether she was what order she was in the children, whether she was third, fourth, or whatever. But anyway, she was one of my great-granddaddy's children. Granddaddy, Ike Minish, and my grandmother. And anyway, as you can see, he was born in 1877 and lived in 1954. And my grandmother was born in 1880 and lived to 1968. And he's the one that lived directly across the road here from the cemetery on the farm that I had mentioned that was given to him by my great-granddaddy, along with farms for the other children. He was a very unique person and was a very nice fellow. I spent a lot of time with him and took care of him for about the last 2 years of his life. I guess when he raised well, he would have a slight case of Alzheimer's, but he and I always got along good. And he always done what I asked him to do, so we made it just fine. There's a lot of stories I could tell, but right now is not the time to get into that probably. Over here is my uncle, Ian Minish Jr. And born in 1922 and died as a result of a car accident in 1947. And he was drafted in the World War II, the very first part of 1942, right after the war broke out in 41 in December. And he stayed for the entire duration of the war and fought in numerous countries. First in North Africa, and then in Sicily, and then in Germany the last few months of the war. Needless to say, he come back a changed man. Because he's seen a lot of death and a lot of destruction. And prior to him going into the service, he was just a country kid raising cotton. I helped his daddy raise cotton. Never seen the world past commerce, more than likely. Over here to the side is Irene, and she's my aunt. She lived the biggest portion of her life with my granddaddy and them. She had 2 children, and Donald and Joanne Wilson. But she lived with them and cooked and done such as that for years and years and years until after my granddaddy died. So you can see she was born in 1916, died in 1985.
So she too had lived a long life too. Okay.
Alright, where we're standing here is Lucy May Minish Lapsley. She did not marry until she was about 45 years old. And she had always lived either in Atlanta or in New Jersey ever since she got a secretarial course after what they called a normal school. Back then, she was sent off to that school down there and learned secretarial work. And then she went to Atlanta immediately upon graduation. And she never come back to this part of the country to live again. She worked for Georgia Power something like 30, 35 years. And then lived the rest of her life in Newark, New Jersey. And the gentleman she married, Ray Lapsley, was an electrical engineer. And he held several patents on electrical devices and methods and so forth that he had patented, some of them during World War II and some of them after World War II. And they were pretty successful in what they set out to do.
Okay, Danny.
Well, we're standing in front of Annie Sue. That's my aunt, Annie Sue Fitzpatrick. And she was born 1910 in August, died January 25th, 1995. And she had several children, but she spent the greatest part of her life in Atlanta as a hairdresser. And she worked for Rich's for their I worked in Rich's department store, like a beauty salon that probably had a franchise or whatever. She done very well for herself because she had a very rich clientele that came by there. And she done very well in a lot of ways, I suppose. But later she sold out her properties in Atlanta and came to Danielsville, built a home along about 74, 75, and lived there until about 92 or 93, where she went to a nursing home and then died in 95. But to divorce from her husband, and so that's the reason you only see this one tombstone. What we got standing here is Buford. He's next to the oldest brother, and as you can see, he was born November 27, 1929, and died in February 6, 99. He farmed, drove trucks, done first one thing and another. Spent the last 20 or 25 years, I suppose, of his life in Eastport, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And had 3 children. He's divorced from his wife, and so he really had a pretty hard time of it, I suppose. But I think that's about all I can say.
Okay.
Now this one is, this grave we're looking at here is Roland and Reba Minish. And he was 1915 to 1995, and Reba was 1921 to 2003. Now they had several children, and there's 2 of them buried here in this cemetery. He was the son of D.L. Minish, which was one of the children of my great-grandfather, and which I've already talked about. But the luckiest is the next one down is Roland's daughter, and her name was Shirley. And Shirley was born in 1938 and died September the 15th, 2001. He married Eugene Lackey, and of course he's still alive. But the grave site's prepared here for him. But I knew Shirley from her entire life. She was really a pretty nice girl. I always liked her. She was a lot of fun. Grave site of Jeanette Minish Ford, or to be more precise, Dora Jeanette Minish Ford. And Jeanette born 1940 and died February 15th, 2003. She was an excellent person. I thought the world of her. It really bothered me when she got sick and died. Now she was married to Tommy Ford, Thomas Edward Ford, and he's still alive. Jeanette was very instrumental in helping to make this perpetual care fund a reality. She was very energetic in it, and she contributed, her and her husband, a great deal of time and effort. And she was one of the drivers of that project. And I was real proud of the enthusiasm she had for it.
Okay.
Well, this marker here is Uncle Dave's marker. It's D.L. Minish should be the correct name. And he was one of the boys of my great-granddaddy. Born in 1886, died in 1956. And he was married to Miss Lula, and she was my grandmother's sister. And so what we had there was 2 brothers married, 2 sisters. Anyway, she was born in 1886 and 1961. She had one of the most pleasing personalities that you'd probably want to run up on. And of course, he was a jack of all trades and done a little bit of everything. He owned a lot of land and run a store. Sold fishing rights to people to fish in his lakes. Just all kinds of things. Done a lot of farming. But Uncle Dave had his finger in just about every pot if he had any money involved. And he was a pretty nice fellow, though. Everybody really liked him. Roland being one of them that we've already went over a few minutes ago.
Okay.
This headstone here is Woodrow Minish, and that's one of Uncle Dave's boys. Woodrow was born 1913, died in 1969, and he had several kids, several of which lived around here, and some of them, didn't. But Woodrow was in partnership with his daddy on the enterprises we just talked about. Farming, stores, all kinds of things they were into. Done pretty well for themselves.
Okay.
This is Deborah Collins. Now, she's a daughter that died young of Anna Lou Minish, who was the daughter of Woodrow. And it appears that this child was 1958 to 1976. And I really don't know what the cause of death was.
Okay.
This is the mark of R.B. Minish. And of course, he was named after my great-granddaddy. And he was the son of D.L. Minish. And he was born in 1929, died in 1982. And his wife, Betty, born in 1931, and she's still living. He had several children, and all of them done very well for themselves. But he died of prostate cancer. It was a pretty tragic death for him.
Okay.
One of the other things that R.B. he was in the service too, in the U.S. Navy. I don't know exactly how many years, but he was in there for several years. But he came back here and did a lot of farming and road grading. Had his own construction company and everything. And seemed to do pretty well doing that. Here is Reverend Minish. He was the son of Woodrow, who we just covered a minute ago, 1950 to 1997. I'm not real sure, what he died from, but I don't think he was ever married.
Okay.
This is a mark of Annie Lou, and her second husband was a Skinner, so it's Annie Lou M. Skinner, 1934 to 1992, and she was living in North Carolina, as I recall, when she died. But she's the daughter of Woodrow, so he's got quite a few people buried here, as you can see. This is a gravestone of James D. Minish, and he's the son of Woodrow. And 1936 to 1961, and anyway, he'd just gotten out of the service. He'd been out of the service just a few months when he was killed in a head-on wreck with a transfer truck. He was killed instantly. along with him and another fella, one Saturday night going to Athens. And got killed at a pretty early age. This headstone here is Trail Davis. Now he married Susie Minish, who is the daughter of Uncle Dave, and she's still alive. But he was born in 1914 and died in 1960. And Susie was born in 1923, and she's still going strong today. Even though she was 30 years old, so I think she'll be around a while. She's really a fun person to be around too. Now this is the tombstone of Charlie C. Page and Icy E. Page. Now Icy was Uncle Dave's girl, and she was one of the oldest of the children. She was born in 1908, died in 1997. And Icy lived a full life and enjoyed every minute of it. So she was married a couple of times and had a couple of children. But she was pretty successful in the endeavors she was into, and that was everything from running restaurants to running retail stores and such as that. But she was a funny person. Now this is the Miss Cammy's Seegers. And anyway, of 1891-1973, and Richard Allen Minish. And 1880 and 1971, and they called him Uncle Rich. Uncle Rich lived off up in Jackson County most of his life. And he was one-armed, but he got his arm cut off when he was about 17 years old, working in my great-granddaddy's gin. Got it in between a wheel and a cog there, and it just cut his arm right off. And he went through life like that. Had several children, but I haven't been able to keep up with them very much over the years.
Okay.
Well, what we have here is my mama and daddy, Hope Minish and Eli Minish, and he was one of two sons of Isaac Minish, my grandfather. Daddy farmed all his life, and Mama did too. What time she been doing a little work in Athens at various jobs that she picked up there over the years. But anyway, Mama lived to be up to 1995, and if you'll notice, she was born July the 5th, 1908. And he was born July the 20th, 1908. 15 days difference between their birth dates. And my mama probably was noted for one single fact. She never found anything wrong with anybody. She never said anything bad about anybody. She's a wonderful person. My daddy was a pretty smart man. He knew how to do things and taught me a lot about self-sufficiency. And I guess a great deal about independence. Probably I got that from him more than anybody else. But they had 6 children. Over to the side here are 2 children that were stillborn. Willis and Thomas. Thomas in 1928 and Willis in 1931. That would have made it, like I said, there were 6 children. All of them were boys. Not a girl in the crowd. But probably would have helped some if I'd have been. That knocked the rough edge off of us. As you can see, they were married in 1925. And they wasn't very old. I think he was about 16 years old. And I was pretty young even for those days. My grandfather, Minish, he didn't think too much of the idea of his boy running off and getting married that early. So he decided he was going to go over and bring him back home, over to my Grandma Maddox's house. And Mama was a Maddox, of course. And anyway, my granddaddy Minish confronted my daddy and told him he was going to have to come home. He was going to have that marriage done away with. And he wasn't getting married. And that's when Daddy told him he'd do what he wanted to and when he wanted to do it. So I think that's the first time that my grandfather had run up against a rock and a hard place. But anyway, he's the one that gave in, and they got along great after that. That's the only problem I think I ever had. But Mama's parents were highly, deeply religious in the Baptist church. And her father was a head deacon in the church for, I don't know how many years, numerous years. But his name was Grist Maddox, and his wife's name was Dora. And they had several children, but I won't get into all of that. But anyway, after Daddy and Mama were married, first child I had was Benson, and then Buford, myself, and then Alvin. During all that time, they lived up. They grew up, lived through the Depression, and I've heard some pretty sorry stories about how life was back then. It was a pretty bad time for them. Cotton went from something like 40 cents a pound in 6 weeks. It was a nickel a pound in 1929. And from then on, it was downhill all the way. And there really wasn't any recovery until after World War II, which was after 1946, and slowly coming back. So it lives through some of the roughest times probably in this past century. And of course they weren't the only ones. There was a lot of other people sharing the same misery, but it was a hard time for them. And it was a real challenge to them, I'm sure, to be able to take care of the family. But they managed to do it. And Mama never lost her outlook. Being optimistic. And Daddy never quit trying, so there we go. at this time, unless I want to delve in my relationship with them as I grew up. So when
Okay.
what you see is the cemetery that was originally set aside by my great-granddaddy, and I believe the earliest recorded burial in the cemetery in 1911. And I don't know whether you can see the boundaries on it, but the white post at each corner is the boundary lines of the cemetery. It's been expanded in the last 3 or 4 years to take care of the front out here. And that was donated by Dr. Albert Minish. It was set aside for the direct descendants of R.B. Minish when he set this thing up. And it's been kept that way thus far. Now, we've established a perpetual care fund that at this time takes care of the maintenance on it. And as you can see, it's in good shape. Grass is well cut and so forth and so on. But it's only minimum maintenance really, because we need to have about $10,000 more in it to make it really work forever. But we're slowly getting there.